listening to District Music. Hello, you're very welcome to the District Music Podcast, episode 10.
Whoa.
I think.
Double digits?
I think so, yeah. It is the 20th of August, 2026. My name is Rachel Mayhannon.
I'm Dray Morgan.
And today is a very special day because it's also Phil Lynott's birthday. He was born on August 20th, 1949. And that's what we're talking about today. I'm really excited.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. What kind of happy birthday songs do you sing?
I was just about to say, there's so many different happy birthday songs, isn't there? There's like a few. There's like, obviously there's happy birthday, then there's happy birthday, which I only know from Peep Show, like the show Peep Show, because they sing it in there. But the family's supposed to be really weird, and the fact that they sing that is supposed to be like...
It's like strange.
Yeah, and there's like...
Then there's the Stevie Wonder, like, happy
birthday, and there's like,
to
happy birthday, my friend.
Oh.
One more year from them. There's that one as well, which I would like send to my friends as like a joke on their birthday.
For anyone not watching YouTube right now, Dray was moving his hips there a lot.
And then there's one, I don't know if anyone's seen the meme of like, it's like a kid in like a... I was actually showing someone this yesterday. It's like, it's a celebration. And he's just like dancing like that. But there's like, people know. It's like a kid in a restaurant, a little kid, and he like gets up on his seat and he's just like...
He's grooving.
He's like dancing like that.
It's
so
like a structured groove.
yeah, it's like
robotic
groove, but
yeah.
he's like 8 years old and he's like, because it's his birthday. And they're like, it's a celebration.
That's so cute.
So yeah.
I also always sing the Simpsons one, like, Lisa, it's your birthday.
Lynott, it's your birthday.
But yeah, he was actually born in West Bromwich in England, and then was later raised in Dublin. And obviously, for anyone that doesn't know,
Brom.
Yeah,
he's a Brummie.
He's a Brummie.
Damn.
But obviously, Dublin man.
Yeah, we're go on now.
Man, if anybody doesn't know him that's listening to this, he's of course the frontman of the Irish rock band Thin Lizzy. And today, the main part of the podcast is going to be Dray chatting to Jim Fitzpatrick. Who is Jim Fitzpatrick? Well, he is basically the most famous visual artist behind all of Thin Lizzy's stuff. He designed like their typography, their logos, their album covers. And I really can't wait for everyone to hear that chat that Dray will have with Jim Fitzpatrick. But he's also known for what else, Dray?
Well, I mean, Jim Fitzpatrick is probably like one of the most famous unfamous artists. Like he created the print of the most reproduced picture in the world, which is Che Guevara. That iconic image of Che Guevara set to kind of two-tone colors, which has been used obviously inspiration for like so many political campaigns as well, like Barack Obama, the Yes We Can, like that kind of thing. Absolutely lovely guy, fascinating dude. He's the type of guy that you can sit there and listen to for hours. And there's probably seldom few people who have as much personal insight into kind of Phil Lynott and his family and his kind of creative process, creative evolution and personal evolution than Jim Fitzpatrick. So it is like very exclusive. The guy, Jim, is in great nick. He's like 80, I don't know how old he is. He's like very old, but he's in great nick. He was zipping around his little apartment. He's got all of these like Thin Lizzy originals all around his apartment, and then he's got all this like kind of Celtic artistry that he does as well, and then he has like a few Che Guevara posts. Very cool guy, still very politically active, and he loves the Instagram as well. He was like, make sure you collab post me on Instagram. I'm like, getting like a 90-year-old man being like, make sure you add me as a collaborator on your post. I'm like, there's people like my mum wouldn't even know what that's about, never mind like Jim. But yeah, absolutely lovely dude, and could talk for days. Such an eloquent talker, and yeah, really cool guy, and there's a really cool interview coming up.
Really excited to hear that. But before we get into that, is there any crack just in general? Like, what have you been up to lately? Because I feel like, because last week you were replaced by Luke Conroy, and
literally, he did a great job of being me, by the way.
Great job of being you. If you haven't listened,
he
back
kind of has Phil Lynott-esque hair.
He does.
He kind of has that hair going on.
Guys, last week myself and Luke Conroy from the Piss Rogues podcast had a great chat about Irish fairy folklore and music. And yeah, it felt weird not having you here.
I was really annoyed that I was like, because I wanted to do this, and I was like, we should get Luke on the podcast, we should get him on the podcast. And then where was I? Oh yeah, I was out and about. So yeah, I couldn't do it, but he's a fantastic dude and a very funny man. So I'm really
But what have you been up to lately? Like in your personal life, what's been going on?
Wouldn't you like to know? No, I think, holidays is coming up. I'm going to Albufeira with my brother for a lads holiday. First ever lads holiday. Because we were kind of COVID generation, so never had that like leaving cert holiday kind of thing.
Cool.
Go to see Belters only in Albufeira. Be there or be square, man.
Let's go.
So make me feel good. Make me feel nice. It's going to be happening. Yeah, we've got loads of stuff happening there. So I think we're going to get a bit silly. I'm going to go kind of like pretend I'm Louis Theroux in that surroundings. And this is cultural observation.
Sketchy.
But I'm going to have a good time, you know. I know how to get silly. So yeah, I think that's going to be me. Albufeira is on the cards. And then we're coming back and hitting up Deftones, SD Kid, Wisp, Death Haven, Salem, All Points East. That's the next weekend, but maybe that's for another podcast to talk about. What about you, Rachel?
I was in Donegal with the fam there for the last week, and it was lovely going for dips, going saunas, going seeing Sleeve League. Lads, if anybody hasn't seen Sleeve League, like check it out. It's 3 times bigger than Cliffsmoor. It's the highest accessible sea cliffs in Europe. And yeah, it's just honestly breathtaking. It doesn't seem real when you look at Sleeve League because it's like this 2D image, and it looks like a screensaver, and very impressive. So I'm kind of just like settling back into work after being off for the last week, and feels weird.
I'm like so ready for I'm gonna actually have a proper holiday, because usually I'm like zooming around the city getting up to bullshit. So like this one, I'm just gonna sit there, few sangrias. What do they drink in Portugal? Like port? I mean, I like port, but that doesn't feel like a beach drink. I don't think you drink a mug of port on the beach. But either way, I'll be doing that. I love port.
I'm actually going to Spain next week, and
I know, never ends.
I know. Sorry that I'm just really cool. Going free diving.
Yeah, I've heard about this. Go on.
So free diving, and I've never done free diving. I don't know if you've seen the documentary.
No, you're telling me about it. I'm gonna watch it before you go. I'm gonna watch it as you're in the water.
It's scary, but I'm not gonna be going that far down. I'm just doing an entry level course, and yeah, I was practicing holding my breath yesterday, and I only got to 1 minute 10 seconds.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this after the podcast. We're gonna see how long.
Will you just do it right now? I'm only joking. Imagine we just wasted a minute of the podcast of us holding our breaths. Okay, before we get into the amazing chat with yourself and Jim Fitzpatrick, can we do a little bit of music nerdery this week in music history? Yes. Do you remember in primary school you used to do that, like with the teacher?
And would go on for ages.
Or do you also remember? I don't know if you did this, but like if like the teacher asked a question and you'd be like, teacher.
No, that's that. We used to go, and I haven't
up in the air. No,
no.
Whoever had the highest.
You're doing too much at that point.
Sorry,
no,
beavers.
But we used to, if someone used to do something like bad, we used to go like, you can't do that.
Really? That's
but
weird.
I haven't met anyone else that has done that before.
It sounds like you're meditating.
Yeah. It's like, But yeah. I was also thinking back to when like my teacher sometimes, I remember we had a student teacher, she was young anyway, like when we were like 7 or something. And she used to like leave the class. I don't know where she used to go, and like put someone in charge of like the whiteboard and like write someone's name down if they're talking. I'm like, that's what kind of Stanford prison experiment type thing is that, like getting one kid to be like the ruler of all the other kids. And I remember one time she picked me to do it, and I was like, guys, like,
that's actually mad.
Be free. You
know, release me from the shackles.
But yeah, okay, let's note out.
Let's go into this week in music history. So from like the 17th to the 23rd of August kind of energy, but it could be in or around. But will I go first?
Yes.
Okay, so in 1988 there was an Iron Maiden earthquake. But basically this is folklore. We don't know if this is true, but it was supposedly registered as a minor seismic event, and I'm talking about an Iron Maiden gig with 100,000 fans jumping simultaneously. Supposedly that made a minor little earthquake from geological equipment like several miles away. I don't know if it's true.
I believe it.
I kind of believe it. On the 20th of August, Iron Maiden, they headlined a Monsters of Rock at Donington Park for the first time, and this was like part of their 7th tour.
Is Donington Park? Is that in England or something?
Yeah, and basically it was Iron Maiden, Kiss, David Lee Roth, Guns N' Roses, Megadeth, and Halloween.
A lot of hair.
Yeah, a
lot of hair.
And No, so it was also remembered as a tragedy because 2 people died during the Guns N' Roses set. They were crushed underneath the enormous crowd. But imagine being in that environment, 100,000 people, 107,000 people to be exact. Like, I've never been at a gig that big.
I feel like post Astroworld incident, like that. You remember Travis Scott had his festival and loads of kids died from the crushing. I feel like post that, we've really seen kind of that was almost a watershed moment of crowd control, and you rarely see like these big crowds that reach backwards without kind of dividers in between, like horizontal dividers through the crowd. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, like I remember, the longitudes of the stuff back in the day. They get hectic, and it does get to the point where it's like, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean?
Slane would probably be the closest thing in Ireland, wouldn't it? As in capacity-wise.
Yeah, but even I feel like you have a lot of space at Slane, maybe.
Yeah.
Like if you're in those like enclosed kind of stadiums or arenas, and you're hitting 100,000 people, or even in those parks, like 100,000 people. I haven't seen 100,000 people anywhere, even at a football match. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Same. So yeah, 20th of August, supposedly it created a minor little earthquake from 100,000 fans jumping in perfect unison during Iron Maiden set. That was in 1988. But what else happened this week in music history, Dray?
This week in music history. 21st of August 2022. I picked this one because it's kind of like, it's just a funny one. So I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Afro Man. He did that song. It's like, I was gonna clean my room. Yeah. There's a legal battle that he had with. He lives in Ohio, basically, on this big ranch, and the Ohio police were constantly looking for reasons to raid him, and basically they were looking for evidence of kidnapping, drug trafficking, all this stuff that just was not true. And Afro Man has cameras all over his ranch, and the police went in, and you can see on these cameras that they're like ripping all this stuff apart, taking down cameras, turning off their body cams, all of this stuff.
What?
It was ridiculous. But on the 21st of August 2022, Afro Man releases this video called Lemon Pound Cake, and Lemon Pound Cake is basically him using his security footage as the music video for a diss track on the Ohio police. And this starts like a really lengthy legal battle between the Ohio police and Afro Man, because the Ohio police are trying to sue Afro Man for slander. Afro Man's like, I literally just showed my security footage. Like, how can I be slandering you when I'm showing people what is happening? Afro Man ends up dropping like 3 different tracks as like diss tracks on the Ohio police, back and forth, and eventually Afro Man wins the case, and I think he's awarded like, there's a song called "Are You Gonna Repair My Door?" He gets awarded $20,000 to repair the door because they kick his door down. All of this stuff, but basically it kind of like revived Afro Man's career, and he's now like touring all over America again because this kind of legal battle between him and Ohio police went really viral. But he's a super cool guy. Channel 5, the YouTube channel, did a really interesting interview with Afro Man post all this happening, and he just seems like a chill dude. Yeah, so the Afro Man saga began on the 21st of August 2022, and it only ended about 6 months ago, to be honest.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense that he's having a revival because I'm sure a lot of Black American people can relate to
exactly.
the hardship that they have to deal with the police in the US as well, and especially now.
Very
interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's my little gem.
I have another one for you from 1969. Big year. Men also walked on the moon this year. But Johnny Cash was touring. He was in his prime at this point, and he was touring his live album Johnny Cash at San Quentin, because basically he went to a concert in San Quentin,
the jail,
the jail, yeah, and this performance became so famous because he was so furious with the television cameras who were going to record his gig. They were blocking his view of the prisoners. So he got really annoyed. There's a famous photo of him sticking his middle finger up at the production crew. That's why he was so annoyed. And basically, he flipped off the camera crew and supposedly ordered all the wardens to let the inmates crowd the stage. And I don't know if you've ever heard that recording of Johnny Cash in San Quentin. I remember hearing it when I was really young, and I was like, whoa, this is really cool, because I think he plays like 3 times the crowd gets so energetic because he's basically given out about St. Quentin, and he did he really riled up the crowd, and you can hear their cheers in the background. So it's really cool that he's singing about St. Quentin in St. Quentin with all the prisoners there. He's like, let these prisoners enjoy this show. And yeah, it's just like a really defiant performance. And I just think it's really interesting. And I think maybe we should just input a little clip here. So Colin, our amazing editor, if you could put in a little clip of the prisoners like jeering and shouting at the background of this, please do. So this was number 1 on the Billboard charts this week in music back in 1969.
San Quentin, I hate every inch of you. You cut me and you scarred me through and through.
Okay, my final gem. I don't know if you're familiar with the Westboro Baptist Church. They're like an evil...
I've heard of
evil family church people. Yeah, they're like famous for like picketing like funerals and synagogues, churches, literally anything saying that you're going to go to hell because you don't believe in our specific sect of Christianity. But yeah, they went on this day, on the it's the same day, on the 21st of August, but 2015, they picketed outside of a Foo Fighters show, and I'm not going to say what they have on their signs, but you can look it up. Like, some of their signs are genuinely heinous, like the amount of hatred that they have in their hearts. Like, you feel sorry for these people that they hate so much. But yeah, they're picketing Foo Fighters. They're outside, and you're seeing like 8-year-old kids with these big signs like "God hates everyone" kind of thing. But there's a really great video of like Dave Grohl coming in with like this kind of like monster truck thing, and just like basically encircling them so you can't see them, and they're kind of just like in this like little, I don't know, they're outside the gig and they're just getting completely blocked by these trucks basically. And they're kind of just like, well, what do we do now? So they're kind of just like protesting to an empty truck. So yeah, I thought that was just a funny little tidbit of Dave Grohl versus the Westboro Baptist Church, because I think that was one of my first journalistic obsessions, was the Westboro Baptist Church. I was like,
it's fascinating.
They're such a strange family, and a lot of them have left now. Like, I don't know if anyone's seen the Louis Theroux docs. Like, he's done 3 follow-ups, and you can feel like the fatigue through the years. Like, the first one, they're like, yeah, we believe in everything, and then the second one is like, I don't care about the people who left, and the third one is like, everyone's leaving. This is kind of, we're kind of fucked.
I find documentaries on those types of people so fascinating, because I just find it fascinating how their minds work and how different it is to mine.
I know. And their pastor, like, apparently when he died, the guy that founded the church, there was a LGBTQ organization that bought the house opposite from the family's like complex, and they painted it in rainbows. And apparently he ran out just before he died and like went on his knees and was like on this garden of this house and was like, I'm so sorry, like, you are good people, and I know I'm gonna die, and like everything that I've said has been hate. And they apparently like dragged him back in the house and was like, yeah, he's like delusional. Like, they told like everyone, yeah, he's like delusional. Like, he's just like in old age. He's like, yeah, it's like having
crazy how context can sculpt you so much.
Yeah.
Wow, fascinating. And actually, speaking of Dave Grohl, Violet Girl's put an EP, and we're going to be chatting about EP next week.
Whoa, hashtag link.
Yeah, link. She actually really cool stuff, and I hope that she is kind of appreciated in her own right, and not just the daughter of Dave Grohl. But yeah, really looking forward to that episode next week, 27th of August, the Thursday right before EP. But let's go back to this week. Because, of course, another thing, as we said, that happened this week in music history is Phil Lynott was born. I remember we talked about this recently, but is it a relative or maybe the daughter of Phil Lynott actually said on the Late Late Show once that it's pronounced Lynott, but I can't do it.
We've been Mandela effect. We've been Lynott affected.
Phil Lynott, but I don't know. So I'm sorry if I'm saying both. I'm changing. I don't know what is going on, but just to give a brief little history of Phil Lynott / Lynott before we go into the Jim Fitz chat. As we said, he's a Brahmi boy, and he had a white Irish mother and a black Guyanese father, and he moved to Dublin as a young child to be raised by his grandparents. And he was one of the very few black children in Ireland in the 1950s, and specifically in working class Dublin. But people just loved his charisma And he just kind of got over this prejudice by believing himself, this like unfounded confidence. And before he actually did, he did join Thin Lizzy. There was several local bands in the 1960s that he was part of, like the Black Eagles, Skid Row, and it was there where he befriended the guitarist Gary Moore, who he played with for years. But yeah, anything else that you like to say about him?
Jim, you'll see it in Jim's interview, but like I think it's just so funny. There's a lot of just banter that goes on, I think, or like a lot of Jim sounds like the sensible one, I think, and Phil was definitely the mentalist. Like, you know, like there's a bit where I think one of the first things Jim ever says to Phil is like, oh, because they were talking about being abandoned by their parents. It's like, well, you lasted 6 years. I only lasted 6 months or something like that. Yeah. And then I think it's really funny how he was always kind of like trying to reel Phil back on his like hardcore violent republicanism. Like really, like Phil Lynott was a very hardcore Republican. Those kind of things I found really interesting. And yeah, just like the pressure on the man as well. Obviously there's the darker side to Phil Lynott's life and the tragic side as well, and I think it's an angle that you don't really see much or isn't addressed in the depth or with the nuance that someone that actually lived and was close to him was like. So Jim has had so many personal conversations with Phil that will probably never truly show the insight. Like he will probably never release insight because they are personal conversations, but the immense amount of pressure that Phil Lynott had on his shoulders to provide for basically the entire working class community that he came from was equally as much of a driving force as his love for music, love for art, love for passion. So I think it's a beautiful story of Phil Lynott, but it's obviously like a beautiful tragedy as well. So I think that's what makes him such an interesting character, and he's such a trailblazer for the Black Irish community as well. So yeah, huge respect for Phil Lynott, and just such an intelligent guy, you know what I mean, which I think should never be passed up on. Like the man was incredibly intelligent,
and the musical legacy that's left behind is like that whole idea of like the two guitars, like the one doing the chords and then that really cool like Irish rock riffs. Like I was listening to them yesterday and I was like, this is like, I really don't know anyone else that sounds like this. And you can hear like influence like that these guys had on the likes of Iron Maiden that we talked about earlier.
I always forget how early Thin Lizzy is. Like it's literally a trailblazing band.
So much influence on Iron Maiden and like Def Leppard and Metallica as
literally.
Well. And I think that's why those bands love coming back to Ireland as well. And I like, you know, you mentioned him being a staunch Republican there. You can really hear his like this mixture of like the working class romanticism mixed with like the Celtic mythology.
Definitely. Well, you'll hear in Jim's interview, I don't want to keep paraphrasing Jim, but like all of the members, obviously Jim was known for his like Celtic drawings and things like that as well, and he brought a lot of that into the Thin Lizzy art, and all of the members in the band were assigned specific symbols, or it was specific symbols and specific animals. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but each member, if you look on a Thin Lizzy cover, there are specific animals and symbols that represents each member of the band, which is always quite interesting.
So interesting. And even the Black Rose, like that's so fascinating to do with race and Irishness as well. Well, I think without further ado, should we get into it?
Let's get into it. Take it away, Jim.
My name is Jim Fitzpatrick. I'm an artist. I'm Irish. Born in Dublin of Clare roots. Very proud of that. And I suppose I spent my life fighting for lost causes, for want of a better word. And the first one I really got involved with was the Irish women's liberation movement way back in 1968, 69. And that inspired me in a different way to project this image of a goddess as the epitome of Irish feminism, for want of a better word. And that's how I started on the goddesses, because I love mythology. And I decided mythology, you know, is powerful. It tells us of a time when women were preeminent, when the feminine spirit was preeminent, and when Ireland was not an oppressive, but a matriarchal society, right up to the time of Queen Maeve. So I love all that, but I also am political, so I get involved in a lot of lost causes. And I suppose I'm famous for doing the Che Guevara image and for working for Thin Lizzy.
Lovely.
Does that sum me up? Oh, Sinead O'Connor, of course. I was working for Noel Pearson, who is, an impresario, for want of a better word, and he had bands. I did a lot of work for all kinds of different bands. Chips, I think, was one of Louis Walsh's bands. And I was just doing posters, and I wasn't getting paid much money. I just wanted my work reproduced, and posters. I was fanatic about posters. So I worked with, the best work I ever did was with a beat group called Tara Telephone with Eamon Carr, who went on to found Horselips. He was the drummer. And Peter Fallon, the poet, who's a brother of B.P. Fallon. And we did a poetry magazine called Capella, and I got to do all the illustrations. That was before I did Philip's book. And Philip saw that work, and that's what cued him in to ask Frank Murray to ask me, because I played football with Frank, who was Philip's best friend, who was also the manager of the Pogues, so later. But myself and Frank played football up in Phoenix Park, and later in Herbert Park. And we were very close, so when Philip wanted to cover, he was originally going to work with another friend of mine, Tim Booth, who did some illustrations. He did the first Lizzy logo, the Cadillac logo. And he gave me that in a drawing, which I was able to then take and do my own version of it. But Tim was in a band called Dr. Strangely Strange, a very good band. And he was with Chris Blackwell on Island Records, and they didn't want him doing covers for Decca for Thin Lizzy. So that was that. And Frank said, hey, do you remember that guy Eamon Carr was telling you about? And he saw my poster poems in Eamon's apartment or flat. And he wanted to know who did those. And Eamon was saying it's an Irish guy. And he was saying, I thought they were West Coast Americans. So Philip knew my work from Capella, from poster poems from Peter Fallon, from Eamon Carr. So Frank Murray was a mate of mine from football. Frank said, we're going to Dublin to meet Jim. So we flew him over. And we went into the Bailey and we hit it off like a house on fire. We found out very quickly we had something very mutual in common. First of all, we were the same height, almost genetically similar, except he was black and I was white, But, he used to give me clothes to wear to make me look a bit cooler. I was wearing white shirts and shit, you know what I mean? He'd give me something cool, He said, you can't go out like that. I was staying with him for a long period. But at the beginning, anyway, we got to know each other, and he discovered that he was telling me about his dad. Because again, like you, I'm always curious, but Irish people are really curious. We ask questions, but we should shut the fuck up. But we can't help it. Like, where are you from? Well, I'm from Cabra, actually. Oh, no, I mean before that, ethnically. And you're in a swamp before you know it. But it's just curiosity. And Philip was telling me about his dad. And he was abandoned at 5 months. And I was saying, Jesus, I did better than you. I was abandoned at 5 years, And we just took off from there. And we became, the best friends you could imagine. I know everything he told me about his life. Holy God, Stuff I would never repeat. It's his business. But I'm still friends with Caroline, the kids. I love the whole family. Before lockdown, we had one of the best celebrations ever for Philip's 71st. Myself, Caroline, Sarah and Kathleen all got together with all the Dublin Lynots, and there's a lot of them, the whole gang. And I took them on a pub crawl to show where myself and Philip and Frank used to sit and where we go, different pubs. In Neary's, for instance, I sat Caroline down the same place the photograph was taken by Tom Collins of myself and Philip and Peter, all having our big meeting over the publication of his first book. And, it's the same wallpaper. She's there today, and it's the same wall. Just beautiful stuff. She loved all that. And the kids, of course, adored it. Because I went up to Belfast to do my last, what I call public thing. I enjoy talking in public, but I realise it drains me. Because you're anticipating, then you do it, and it's exciting, exhilarating, and then you all go out and have a night out. The next day, 2 days later, I'm fucked.
Yeah, I feel the same when I'm doing things like that.
So you're giving.
Yeah.
But when I was up in Belfast, I was doing a podcast for Jerry Adams in the Cultural Inn up there, and they're all ex-prisoners, friends of mine that I knew throughout the war. And my grandkids were there, and because Jerry was referring to me as the artist, this great work and all this, they're impressed. So that was kudos.
That's a good one. That would impress me.
For me. It's funny, you don't think about fame. Fame is only important to me if my grandkids and my friends kind of, realise that my work is what's the word? I don't want to say important. It sounds stuffy, but my work has merit.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm. No,
It's
definitely.
very important. You know?
I mean, yeah, I definitely want to come back to a little bit more of retrospective look on your work. But yeah, going back to Phil, maybe your relationship with Phil, and like, yeah, working in a professional sense of doing that first bit of artwork. How was that? Obviously, sometimes working with your friend can be kind of difficult. So how was that?
Philip was a dream to work with. He could read my sketches. Now, when I did the first roughs for Vagabonds of the Western World, like I did a gatefold, like you opened out like that. And the record company said, hey, these are a new band, we can't afford that, you know? So we made it into a cover. And then when I was doing the cover, he said, look, I love your sort of, to some of your work looks like Marvel Comics for the magazine, for a Capella magazine, the poetry magazine. He said, can you try that kind of look on it? So we went for a more comic book look, which reached its peak actually with Jailbreak, where it's a total Marvel comic influence book, you know, or look. And myself and Philip were massive Marvel Comics fans back then, you know.
Wow.
And I'm a collector. I was a collector. I have every Silver Age Marvel comic known to man.
That's very cool. Yeah, I think like what when you obviously working with an artist, working with a music artist and kind of obviously working with a band like Thin Lizzy, are you listening to their music and then trying to kind of interpret that into something?
I'll
or how
give you
did
a laugh. Here's how it worked. Philip would say, we have this incredible song and we want you to do a visual for it. A Bakelite black phone, and he's playing it down the phone. And I'm trying to listen carefully, and I'm going, can you play that bit again? Oh, yeah. Who's that? It's not Eric, it's Gary. And I'm going, Gary Moore. Yeah. You know, it's all, I can't explain it. Everything is so easy these days. You email, you Zoom Philip, and Philip says, here's what you do, and I'm holding up the roughs. Nothing like that. I would have to do a rough. And here's how it worked. At 8 o'clock in the morning, a courier would call to my door, right, on a bike, take it to the airport, to have it over with Philip for a meeting with the record company around 12 o'clock.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Now, how do we get to the point where he could see what I was going to do? Because I would do roughs and send, literally, I had a photographic machine so I could make a copy of them on paper negatives. This is before photocopying, for God's sake. Do you know what I mean? You made paper negatives that you dipped in developer, water, and fixer. I had dishes upstairs here, you know, with all this on a machine, a photographic machine that was that height, like a bellows, you know, with a lens, and it would make a huge plate, and on that plate would go, actually I have a copy of it somewhere, a paper negative. Oh, there's one there. Yeah, the record company used this because that's actually what a paper negative would look like. They made a print of that for one of the albums for Decca.
Wow.
So that's my line drawing.
I'm going to keep that there.
Turned into a paper negative and then a print made and sent to Philip for that morning. So he'd be able to see it. And he'd ring me up and say, oh, I love that. Get going on that quick. He'd always add in, I'm trying to think on Vagabonds. Yeah, as I was working, he kept adding in stuff because I said, I'm going to have a kind of Newgrangey kind of stones in front of this lunar landscape. And he said, I want this symbol on it. So they have that little symbol that's kind of reminiscent of Led Zeppelin, except it's an old Irish magic symbol. Then he'd add in, you know, oh, listen, he had all these images. I can't remember. The spider had to be put in there because that was Philip. The mouse was Brian, and Eric, I can't remember what Eric was, a frog. So all these little jokes had to be fixed in after I'd done all the artwork. Do you know what I mean? So he was constantly coming and going, but it was all on the phone, on a Bakelite phone. Now, when I'd have the artwork, I'd fly over with it because I was paranoid and anybody going near it. But we'd have a meeting in the office. I remember Chinatown. Scott was like blown away. He was so effusive. Scott is still a good friend of mine. I had him up in the Abbey Tavern there last year, and he's still the same. He's a lovely man, you know, beautiful man. Amazing performer, guitarist, but as a person, fabulous person. So is Brian. So did they all. Actually, there was a lot of really good people involved. Even the managers, who are usually shite hawks, I've dealt with some of them. Chris Morrison, Chris O'Donnell, they were fabulous people. They're the ones who put Live Aid together with Midure, you know, they're no slouches. And they have what I call an incredibly honest, decent side to them, besides all the shenanigans that go on with the rock and roll world, you know, especially with Philip in the end, when he was on drugs and everything, he was behaving like a lunatic sometimes, you know what I mean? Just annoying record companies that he would never do that before. He's far too smart for that. You know? But when you're dealing with human beings, you're dealing with people who, like all of us, have imperfections. And if you gave me all that money, would I be the same person? And if you gave me that fame, where thousands and thousands of people are out there in front of you. I had a long conversation with him before he died. And it was one I didn't go into at any great length and still don't. But basically what he said to me was very simple. He said, Jim, I'm running on empty. I've nothing left to give. He said, have you any idea what the pressure is like on me now? We're not as big as we used to be, and I'm trying to keep the show on the road. I have 35 families that won't eat unless I get out and perform. You know what I mean? And you forget, you think Philip is up there having that great time he's performing away. No, he's the band leader. He's like me, he has a sense of responsibility. He felt bad. I remember at one point, I won't go into the details, one of the band members had a slight problem, they bailed him out. But he took it as like his family. And he regarded the fans as family too, which a lot of bands do as well, to be fair. But he always felt the need to reach beyond just being a rock star and let people know he was a person. And he was very good at that, I felt. But when drugs entered the picture, the whole thing changed.
Yeah, I think, I'd love to.
I mean, hard drugs.
Yeah, of course.
I smoke dope, so I don't regard it as a drug. Dope is a drug, you know. This is such a drug, why am I still here at 82? I've been smoking since I was 17.
Very true. Yeah, I mean, I want to ask, maybe like, obviously Ireland has bred some great minds and some great artists, great creative minds, but a lot of them obviously end up leaving or end up relocating to no fault of their own, or just maybe kind of maybe chasing notoriety or just chasing more facilities or whatnot.
Had no choice. You couldn't be a rock star in Ireland at that point.
And like music artists or even just, you know, visual artists or anything. So why are you still here, maybe, I want to ask?
Because I got lucky. When the petrol crisis started, I was slowly running out of money. I had enough money to last me a couple of months. I thought loads of work was going to come in because I was quite well known even at that point. I had a lot of connections in advertising. They paid great money. I lived off those connections for many years. I did a lot of advertising work. I always enjoyed it. And of course, you got paid big bucks, which meant I could do all my political work. I could do work with artists and poets and writers, and all free, you know, which I still do. If I get a nice commission, I will go off and do something crazy then, you know, for the next couple of weeks. Like my 1798 stuff, I got a nice big commission there a while ago. That's given me the freedom to take months off to do 1798 stuff that nobody's going to buy, but I believe in it. You know what I mean? It'll be there long after I'm gone. God knows what will happen. Maybe if I bring a revival of that period back and let people know what happened. You know, I played football in the Croppy's Acre. And I said to the guy, why is it called the Croppy's Acre? He said, because you're standing under graves. In Dublin. Nobody knows that. You know what I mean? And I could tell you other ones. Kilmainham's another one. You know? There's people buried there that died fighting for fucking Ireland, or peasants armed with slash hooks and nothing else, and pikes against artillery, you know?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about kind of, how do you view your life? Like, what would you view your legacy as, and are you satisfied?
I often wonder if I could start again with the mind I have now and the knowledge I have now, what direction would I go? And the only comment I ever make is that I would prefer not to have been so political, because political is short-term. It's short-termism. You only do it, it has an effect, or it has no effect, or you're hoping it'll have an effect. But I was born in 1943 in the middle of the Holocaust, and now here I am today in the middle of a child Holocaust. How do you respond to that? Do you just ignore it like certain famous Irish people have done? We won't go into it, I know them personally, and they're not acknowledging it. Where I'm going to be working with Kneecap in the near future, they are acknowledging it. Big bang in your face. we have a duty as artists to respond to trauma. How do you respond to something as traumatic as that? I have no idea. So I worked for Palestine Action. I did a logo for them. I did all stuff. Does it make any difference? I don't know. But at least I feel I've tried to do something, you know. But you can rant and rave and go on Twitter, which I do, you know. It doesn't stop it. I mean, today I'm watching them bombing Lebanon. I suppose their ceasefire doesn't apply to them. They just keep bombing. They're wiping out every... I'm a Christian. They're wiping out every Christian community in the Lebanon. They're wiping every Christian community out in the West Bank. They're wiping every Christian community out in Jerusalem. They're spitting on priests and monks. So that's where we are. How do you respond to that?
How do you view the world then? Do you think your view has changed throughout your life, or do you feel like you've kind of always had kind of a very...
Well, unfortunately, I grew up in the 60s and we had JFK. I actually saw him in Dublin, got up quite close. And he was one of my heroes. With Bobby Kennedy, they broke Little Rock, the segregation. And if you go into a black household in Southern America, you'll see Martin Luther King and JFK together. And it's for a very good reason. They're both icons, you know. And the fact that JFK was Irish and prepared to take a stand like that, I felt wonderful. You know what I mean? And then we had the explosion of the 60s before he was murdered. Even after he was murdered, the 60s continued into the 70s. And all the great movements, feminism, women's liberation, the Green Movement, all these great movements came into being at that point in time. The human rights, the civil rights movements, well, that was up north. But they all coalesced and happened together. So we had this great feeling of hope. And then, of course, on top of that, we got the Vietnam War, the most pointless war in history. Ho Chi Minh was an American asset for the CIA, for the USS. He loved America. He was terrified of China. And rightly so, when he died, they invaded, you know.
I suppose final question, we'll wrap it up and then maybe we'll get some shots of just little things, sure, if that's okay with you. Yeah, I mean, like, how would you like to be remembered, I guess? Do you think about that?
I hope for the Celtic goddesses and the Celtic work I've done, because that is really important to me. It's not just pretty pictures. I believe that we had if you look at the linear movement of Irish art forward, you have literature and you have art. Literature thrived throughout the whole period. Art was suppressed. We became anglicised. Our great artists were artists like Barry, McAleese, these kind of Victorian artists. If you look at the Houses of Parliament with all the fantastic paintings by McAleese. But essentially, I won't call it English art, it's European art, where our monastic art stopped with the suppression of the monasteries. That was the end of that. Many manuscripts were destroyed, including, we've lost a great one called the Kindrum a Sneachta, the Book of the White Cow. That is the whole early Irish history in it that we've lost. Luckily, a lot of it was recorded by a man called Shatron Kitchen, which is the Gaelic name of Geoffrey Keating, a priest who hid in the Aherlow Mountains, or the mountains down near Aherlow, and produced the greatest history of Ireland anybody could ever read. Every old manuscript, including the lost ones, is recorded in that book. So I became fascinated with that. And then I learned about all the gods, the goddesses. I'd learned all the superstitions and the fish oaks from County Clare. But I decided I wanted to do something about this whole feminine side of Irish mythology that was so pronounced and obvious. And that's what I did. Spent God knows how long doing it. And of course I got fixated with the stories, the battles, the Tuatha Dé Danann and the Fomorians, all the battles of the different tribes that came here, including my own lot, which I discovered through research. My lot came, we were tall redhead, I had red hair back then, tall leggy redheads, you know, we were darker skinned then, came from where the steppes in Anatolia is, from Syria, that area of the Holy Land, the top part. If you go there today, there's more redheads in that area than anywhere else. Yeah. So, and I've worked with them. You know, the leader of the Fedayeen, al-Duri, who's a redhead, al-Nazri, the leader of Al-Qaeda, an Israeli asset, has an Irish passport, he's blue eyes, and he's got freckles and red hair. You know what I mean? You know? And when you realise that the Irish race is a diaspora of different races, and we can trace ourselves back to after the Ice Age, and there's 5 distinct races. Who was here first?
Are you asking me?
North Africans. The Irish race is North African. The indigenous people are North African. It says so in the annals. The annals are accurate in the sense that I now know that it said in the annals that our type came here from Scythia, which is where Anatolia is today, around Göbekli Tepe, that whole area. So we have historical proof and we have DNA evidence for what the annals tell us. So the first inhabitants of Ireland were dark-skinned North Africans, probably from Tangier, Morocco, down that end, and Egypt. I was called into the National Museum to view 2 bog bodies they found and give my opinion. And while I was there, they showed me the missal that had been found in the bog, and it was bound together with papyrus from Egypt. So you had these interconnections the whole time at North Africa. People forget that. If you look at early Islamic art and early Christian monastic art, I've used borders from both in my work. I've done a work, homage to Islam, that takes Islamic art and turns it into Irish art, you know? So there's these connections. And if you go further back before the Ice Age, because we know from the woman found in Donegal, there's a couple of bodies being found, a woman and a man. And we can, Dr. Lara Cassidy, the prime geneticist in Ireland, along with my own cousin Aoife, even Mike Lysett, the geneticist who's on an Irish stamp, have shown that the bones of Newgrange that they tested for DNA relate to a pharaonic kind of incestuous system that derives from Egypt, but that can be traced back genetically to Anatolia. For want of a better word, Anatolia covers the area from the steppes where the Donbass and the fighting is now, right across over towards through Turkey. So that's where our race came from. But there's 5 races mentioned, and one of them is a North African race. But if you go back to the earliest times, you're talking about Irish people and English people. There's no such thing as Irish or English, but they were black with blue eyes. And I don't mean light black, dark black. And we have archaeological evidence for that now, you know? So everything isn't as it seemed. We're not all this purdy little white race that turned up out of nowhere. We're a mixture like any other race. But we're fascinating because we blended and we fought the same battles against the same common enemy across the water. You
know? Final thing then, just in a few sentences, like, do you have, so for someone like me who's 23 years old, do you have life advice for me or for your grandchildren, or what would you say?
My life advice is not related to art, but if you're artistic, if you suppress your artistry to earn money, which I did, we all have to do, it creates a backlash inside your mind, and you've got to find another way of expressing yourself. That's why I love posters. Back then, posters were everywhere, right? Now we have graphics. We don't have album covers, which I think is a huge loss for the new generation. There's nothing more exciting than seeing a nice album with your work on it, not a CD. You know what I mean? So I know vinyl is coming back, which is wonderful, but the opportunities that are there, you've got to take and use. If you're artistic, use your own environment. Get to know poets, get to know writers, get to know artists. Because once you're in that environment, you can all feed off each other, you know? But how do you earn money? Now we have a system where young artists are given grants, which is wonderful. That's new. They're giving but what happens when they cut the grants out? They're given a living for maybe 1, maybe 5 years at most. Then they have to stand on their own feet. Try that. That's really tough, you know. The other thing is health. I'm a fanatic for my health. I played football until I was 68. I played sometimes 3 matches a week. Played for Hot Press. I played for Ireland twice under Mick Byrne and Noel King, just for charity games, you know. I was good. But that fitness, I think, saved my life when I had cancer, because I got through. I was really far on with stage 3 cancer. I just got through it, no problem. I had 6 months of chemo, radio, everything. And also, having faith, it doesn't have to be religious. I don't care if you worship the Flying Zucchini Brothers, but having faith and belief in something beyond yourself, I think, is vitally important.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jim.
I left out the last thing in the combination. God, dope. I honestly believe that dope saved my fucking life. Because when I was doing chemo and radio, and this is important, I was with people, all of us together, sitting in these beautiful chairs where you could watch television and all, with this chemo stuff going into you. And I had a chemo bottle attached to me for 6 months. And I was cycling I wasn't playing football at that point, but I was certainly cycling and looking after myself. But what I noticed was that my symptoms, now I did get a pallor, I wasn't as healthy looking. I had to put a bit of colour in my hair because I had red hair back then. It all went. But I had none of the symptoms these other people had to suffer that dope cured. For some reason, smoking marijuana just, all the symptoms of horrible things, hair loss, pallor, loss of mobility, everything that happens with chemo and radio doesn't happen because I smoked dope. I'm convinced. Plus, I was fit, I know. But I believe that should be regarded as one of the most beneficial things God has given us.
I mean, you're not the first person that I've heard that from. So, yeah, that's...
I mean, I hate hard drugs, don't get me wrong. I despise cocaine. I think what it's done to people is horrific. I have had beautiful, good friends died of fucking heroin addiction. Philip didn't die of heroin addiction. He died of septicemia caused by heroin and brandy, a bottle a day, ruining his immune system. That's why he died. You know?
Welcome back to the District Music Podcast. You were just listening to Dray Morgan chatting with Jim Fitzpatrick. He is, of course, a celebrated artist who created Thin Lizzy's most famous visual artwork. Such interesting stuff there, Dray. Like, what did you learn the most from that? Or like, what was your favorite little...
I don't know if we're going to keep it in the interview for the segment, but one of my favorite parts is I was just like, man, what's some life advice? And he was just like, smoke dope.
So good, so great. But, it just seems so cute.
Yeah, I think the best way, and I think a lot of inspiration I took from him was, how do you quantify success? Like, what is success to you? Is success people knowing you, or is success, having your work remembered, or is success making sure that your kids are happy? And I think Jim has figured out what true success is, like he lives in a pretty modest place in Howth. It's a beautiful place in Howth, don't get me wrong, but it's pretty modest. He's a pretty modest dude, but I would say he's one of the most successful people that I've ever met. And I think the metrics of success I definitely have taken away and trying to implement into my own life, and that kind of philosophy that he has, because he's in great nick. He's a very happy person. He has lots of loving people around him, and he does what he loves every single day. So I mean, the guy's figured it out, And
I just find it so fascinating that like him and Phil Lynott had such parallel lives. Like they were both only children raised by very strong, independent mothers or grandmothers, as he mentioned there. And it was in it was such a different time in Dublin in the 1970s. And yeah, I just think I'm just so happy that those two creative minds met. I know that Jim Fitzpatrick online has recalled like seeing Phil Lynott floating around Dublin, and they'd always kind of like nod at each other or chat to each other. But then once they did start working, the rest is history, and I'm so glad it happened. Well, thanks for chatting to him. And
thanks to Jim.
No, thanks for going out to Howth and actually,
it was a pleasure.
Like putting it on our doorstep, because I think it's so important for people to know about him. I don't think a lot of people do know about him, and it goes back to that whole measuring of success. He's successful in his eyes and our eyes, and he doesn't need worldwide fame.
And if you want to hear about the Che Guevara kind of story, then you can check on the District Magazine account, because we have a reel there that kind of tells, with Jim telling his story more about his interaction with Che Guevara and kind of the creation of that print and its virality. So a man of many talents.
Yeah, Che Guevara Lynch.
Che Guevara Lynch.
Well, that's it for this week on the District Music Podcast. Next week, we will be chatting all things Electric Picnic, because it's come up already. I can't believe it's the end of August. But stay tuned for that. And don't forget, you can like, subscribe and rate our podcast. We'd really appreciate it. But for now, that's it from myself, Rachel Hannon. See you next time.
You're listening to District Music.